getting it to that point. I think it helps you, just be more detailed and organized in your practice structure and those types of things. But just as we start off in the first question, I mean, this is where the young offensive lineman, this is the fly in the ointment for me in our current training system, because these young linemen, these padded practice are so valuable, and we cannot get enough reps. But then, on top of it, you got to be smart too, because you can't go too long, do too much too. And I've made those mistakes earlier in my career. I've said this before. I ran that team in the ground in 06 training camp, and I thought I was doing a hell of a job because I was giving them Wednesdays off from pads. But so I know what it looks like when you do too much too in pads. So I'm definitely cognizant of that.
Is making up for some of that, practicing against other teams, is that any part of why you guys do that?
Yeah, this is a bit of a leap for me. We talked about this in the spring, so I mean, I'm looking forward to the work. But this is really trying to get into a more safer environment. Competitive. There's a convenience to it too. We're obviously playing in Denver. It's definitely Nathaniel I've known for a long time, and it's on grass. I think it'll be a very healthy practice structure for us. I do like the opportunity to train up in the mountains. I think it'll, because the conditioning goal that you're trying to hit. I think we got the weather here where we can really crank it up. But let's see where we are up there. I think that's another. Those are more points of data and content to analyze, and you definitely get to see players respond. So there's a lot of positives of the opportunity in Denver, and I think just the fact that we're right here with the LA Chargers and going down to Irvine is another opportunity too. So it's not just practicing with other teams. I think there's a lot of other benefits and we've taken the leap to do it 3 times. So I mean that's the most I've ever done. I've always practiced, back in the old days, but it was usually 1 team, not 2. So but I think it's definitely going to give us an opportunity to really work our veteran players.
You asked me about LAM and the GPS numbers earlier. Do all of your veterans especially have a baseline where you get the report every day and you go, okay, tomorrow we got to do this with them, or this is how predetermined is it versus just what the numbers are showing?
You mean predetermined going after the practice or into the practice?
Going into the week where once they get to this number, we're gonna ease them back a day or so.
I mean, every practice you organize, you have a workload capacity for the whole team that you're trying to hit. So and we're usually, we're pretty on spot there. I mean, I've used this system for quite some. I can't remember what year we started, but it's been at least 10 years. So I've got a lot of experience in trying to, apply the workload to each individual drill. So when there's anomalies that kick out, usually it go to one player. Then there's a why. So and so went down. He took his reps. All those. So it's just it's a really good tool for us to coach cleaner within a drill and just stay on top of these guys, because like I said already, we're all chasing the same thing. We're trying to eliminate these fatigue injuries. So we have a meeting every night, 7:30. Britt Brown, Harold Nash, and I, and we go through every player's numbers, and we also we calculate the jog through, because that counts. So I mean it's a low intensity work, but there is volume that goes on to the workload capacity. So that's all part of the formula. So it's something we pay close attention to, and some guys are genetically wired differently than others, and you got body types, you got position types, so you're dealing with different numbers and ranges, by position, by individual, and by age, so. And now that you have a book on your older players, you kind of what range to stay under, and you know when they're not getting enough too. So it's a good tool. I'm definitely a believer in it.
Much of this is, do you get all this information, but sometimes you want to go, my gut saying he needs a day off. Just the eye.
Yeah, no, I think that's knowing your players. That when you get into gut decisions and instincts, I think that also talks to the communication and understanding, and I think it's natural. I think for players not to, they don't come to me, so there has to be a system, a protocol, a process to making sure that the information is accurate, and there's a line of communication to get that done. Yeah, no doubt. I mean, and let's be honest, it's probably a lot like your job. I mean, there's a lot of information there, but what's real? What are you going to use, and how do you apply it to what you're trying to get done. So, I mean, I think it's a very, very, very similar situations in how I do it and how you guys do your job.
What do you like?
Mike, you mentioned generally some of what the linemen can do now that they weren't doing without pads. For a guy like Tyler Smith, who y'all invested a high pick and have early expectations for, what do you watch for these couple days?
Well, the biggest thing is, the discipline and the understanding of the cadence. I mean, if you're a young lineman and you're playing in this offense, we don't line up and use the same cadence every snap. So, that's the first part, because if not just him specifically, Tyler, any young lineman, if you don't get over that threshold, you're not going to be able to play as fast. You're not going to be able to anticipate your awareness. So you're going to be a half step behind. So now you're in a battle that you don't want to be in, playing and play out. So it's really getting the pace of the operation and the tempo, and that's why we do so much up tempo. We're always practicing and pushing the envelope, so to make that part easy for our players, all of our players. So that's the first step. Second is, he's got to play. I mean, he's just like the rest of them. He needs to play in pads. He needs to do combination blocks with Tyler and Tyron, and it's combination block isn't just a combination block. I mean, it's your footwork paired with the guys next to him, the timing, the anticipation, all those things. So I guess the biggest part of it, he just needs reps. We just can't get enough rep for our young players, especially our young offensive linemen.
Speaking of Tyler, from what you've seen in the first week, is there anything that's made you think about reevaluating how much you use him at guard and how much you use him at tackle once the pads come on?
We really had that talk after the spring. I probably played him too much at tackle than guard. Because I think because you got to watch you don't overreact to spring football too, because those guys are at a bit of a disadvantage. Plus, it's new, the pace is new, all the things we just already talked about, and so that could equate to some football where he's a tad late, half step off, hands might not be where. So I think just like anything, if we can keep him in one spot and let him get comfortable there, I think then his next opportunity, his flexibility will definitely benefit from having a good foundation.
Is Waletzko going to go today for you?
No, Wesco will not go.
You guys had last year with penalties. What have you done so far in camp? And how,
The challenges we had what?
with penalties last
Penalties.
year?
Okay.
What have you done with that so far, and how much can you maybe do more with that now that you're getting the pads?
Well, really kind of cranks up today, because I think this is real. We have the NFL officials here, Brad Allen and their crew there. We had a chance to introduce the crew in the team meeting. They've been in all the meetings this morning, so I think it's a great opportunity for us as a football team to interact. Because it's like anything, we know the rules, we understand the techniques that we want to use, but I think understanding the indicators of what they're looking for, how they communicate. So the collaboration I've always felt with the NFL officials is definitely a step in the right direction of when you talk about discipline penalties. So we got to be better, and this gives us a whole closer environment to evaluate and correct. And so I mean we correct it in team meetings, we correct it in the individual meetings. So we have a good process that I believe in. But at the end of the day, we still got to get the play style where it needs to be. And and just stay after that discipline. So that's our approach.
Will the NFL officials also be working the practices with the Broncos and the Chargers?
That is correct.
Jabril Cox had a play Saturday where he showed some range by getting to Rico before the pylon.
Down in the red zone?
Yeah.
Were you in a team meeting today, Michael?
What did that play speak to you in terms of where he is coming
Well,
up?
he made the tracking highlight reel for team fundamentals, so it's a great observation on your part. Man, that's impressive. Can't believe I just said that, but it's a hell of a play. It's exactly what you're looking for. I mean, he's an outside zone, it was a taxi, an 9-hole play, and excellent play. And then actually Luke Gifford, we had what we call a pylon punch out situation, where the defender and the ball carrier get to the pylon at the same time. So the techniques that we use there, so we're able to highlight that today in the team meeting. But yes, that's exactly what you're looking for, and that's what Jabril brings to the table.
Vasher, he made that great catch, and everybody saw it. But what did you think of the reaction of the teammates and everybody coming over? And
Well, I think it's awesome on a number of fronts. I mean, you're talking about a young man that's been here quite some time, has gone through a lot to get in position for this opportunity. So when you see that, something like that, because we all understand the work that he's put in, and the patience that he's had going through this. But also it speaks to, that's his gift. I mean, he's a big target in the red zone, and we've all been waiting for that and looking for it. And obviously, when we get in pads, and those opportunities come, and it'll go to a different level. But I think it's just a combination of all those things. A lot of guys excited for him, but also excited for the play, excited for the skill that you have down there in the red zone, because you love those big targets that can win the 50-50 balls.
As a 6'6" wide receiver, it just seems like an interesting build in terms of like special teams. If you're not going to be a top 3 receiver, is that a challenge to make the roster?
That's an excellent observation, because I think we can make mistakes there as coaches when you look at long receivers. And I had a young man at Geronimo Allison in Green Bay, really high cut receiver, and you're thinking, man, this guy just, he's going to struggle on special teams. He hadn't played it in college at Illinois, and so you get like a predetermined evaluation on a guy because of his build. But it's just like anything, if he can play like that in the red zone, he also obviously has the athletic ability to play, as long as he learns how to play with his power angles. So more work to do, there, but it's definitely something that I think we all have said, oh man, he's not built for special teams, and that hasn't been the case, because as we know, for young receiver, any young player, you have to have special team responsibility. We get in these personnel meetings, the thing that I always bring up is, hey, they have to do 2 things. Outside of your quarterback or your premier pass rusher or left tackle, I mean, for most part, your positional players have to be able to do 2 things. And for a young receiver, obviously, special team responsibility is important.
It's early, of course, in your kicker competition, but what did you take from the first day of getting Liram and Jonathan out there together?
Well, it was their first time, and in front of a crowd, obviously, but also with the protection and rush behind them. I mean, it's not what they were looking for. So I think the thing that I walked away from practice is we need to do more of it. So frankly, we're going to kick every day this week. We'll kick today, tomorrow, and then we'll kick Thursday and Friday. So we got to make sure we give both those guys more opportunities.
What's Jake Ferguson showing you out here?
Love his tenacity, everything we thought he was. You love his tenacity, bright, has a clear understanding, multiple positional player. I think Jake's the kind of guy that'll show up today. You put the pads on, that's his game. So I think he's off to a good start. Just like, he's got this. He's got good understanding for a young guy. Obviously, he's grown up around football. But I think he's put a good foundation, and I'm excited to see him in pads today.
You had the background with Kirsch playing against him for a couple of years. Was there a moment when he got here where you're like, we can give him more than what he's been?
Well, there's no doubt. I mean, he's one of those guys when you watch across the field, because, I mean, special teams wasn't the best thing we did in Green Bay, and he was a problem. I mean, he was a matchup. I mean, he was a matchup problem big time. And as I recall back when he was in Minnesota, and then I really liked what got me on him was I really liked what they did with him in Detroit. As far as that's when they used him as a matchup player, because you didn't see that, as I recall, in Minnesota. But his ability to go and cover tight ends and so forth. And I remember when he came in on his visit, that's how we visualized him. And then I think it's like anything. And once you get in there with a player and you get to know him, I mean, clearly he was capable of doing so much more. And I mean, JK has as good or the best understanding of our defense and game situation. I mean, he's a very instinctive, smart football player that has a unique skill set. So I think that clearly shows in how we're using him. So just real excited to see him take those jumps from Minnesota to Detroit and how he's playing for us. So love him.
A lot of 3 safeties out there in practice. Is that situational personnel the offense is in, or is it just that those 3?
I mean, that's really how we played last year. If you look around the league, base defense is up to 24% on first and second down. I think we were 1% last year. So I mean, it's part of our big nickel package. The ability to stay in nickel for the matchup, but still get into base defense fronts and angles and techniques and so forth. So I mean, that's really how we started playing about midway last year, and so that's really our base, of how we look at the offense.
What is your offense's execution in terms of cadence this year, right now, compared to maybe this time in camp last year?
Clearly better. Yeah, there's no question there. Roxanne does a phenomenal job with the video. So she's actually, hey, Rox, yeah, I'm talking right there. Yeah, so So just the video that we've been capturing too, I think it really helps our younger players. So, and we were talking about a Tyler Smith, getting in there and just to review, Dak's voice, and it's really good for the other quarterbacks. So we're definitely more in sync this year, clearly, than at this time last year. So we're off to a good start.
Do you think the Austin Powers sequels held up, or not so much?
I'm going to have to claim ignorance there. I'm a movie clip guy, but it's, I just there's just a certain clip I use to make a point, and it's a clip that they'll never forget because it's different, obnoxious, and I told them, because when you get ready for a team meeting, obviously you look at it in your office, and sitting there watching my office, I just thought this thing was the funniest thing ever, and then you play in the team meeting, and that's not the response you get. And I said, well, I obviously enjoyed this a lot more than they did, but it made the point, is all I was trying to do. So, yeah, a lot of carryover.
Thank you.
Take care.